So, hello everybody. It is our bi-weekly call for the AO Scan SoulX Australia group. This is the Raising Your Frequency team. We are the original team in Australia, and we are joined tonight by one of the originals in Australia, Shellie Nimsey. She is the most beautiful woman, and I cannot wait to introduce you all to her. She has had her AO from pretty much the beginning. So 3 years now it would be.
Yeah.
We all got our AOs originally, and we were the first group here in Australia to experience this technology. And Shellie has an amazing background. After 20 years in the corporate field and heading towards burnout, she decided that it was really time to bring that focus back to her actual healing gifts and to, creating more wellness in her own life and then bringing that to the lives of others. It's a very familiar story, and it's a beautiful, a beautiful way of one's soul's expressing itself, in this world. We often find that when we get to crisis point, we know it's time to pivot. And so Shellie is now working in many different fields, and a ceremonialist, a shaman, a kinesiologist. She's working with people with the bioresonance feedback technology. She has a Lucia light. There are many, many feathers to her bow. And so today we're going to be focusing specifically on the AO scan technology and how she's brought that into her wellness practice. And there are so many amazing stories that we're all just about to hear, which I can't wait to ask her about. So, Shellie, welcome. It's wonderful to have you here, and thank you for making the time for us today.
Thanks, Liz. I'm really excited to share all my journeys, I guess, and experiences with the AO to date, and it's just expanding more. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So it's kind of hard to know where to start, but I guess let's just start at the beginning. What was it that drew you to the technology, and where had you been before that? What had you already been exposed to in terms of bioresonance technologies, and how far along your own path in terms of bringing a practice to your client base were you?
It's a good question because I think for me, I was in my corporate career was technology. So I'd had that mindset of IT. And so to study things like kinesiology is quite a technical type of study that looks at the body like a supercomputer because it is so technical, and everybody's body has a different terrain. And I think I'd already been a bit woo-woo and holistic, but I was in federal government in Canberra, and I kind of had to keep a particular persona, I guess, but I was kind of underground and stuff that I was learning or doing. And I saw this naturopath probably about 15 years ago, and she had a cyber scan. That's what she called it. And it's still out there. There's not many. I don't even think there's one in Melbourne. But it's a really interesting technology. It's like a German resonance biofeedback type of machine. You would put your hand on it and read the resonance of your hand, and you get a full report. And then they would give you they would then work out the frequencies and put a card in, or it used to be liquid originally, and they'd cover it in like foil, and you take the liquid away. And then they advanced and got a card, put all the frequencies on a card, like a piece of jewelry or something, and you would wear it in your bra, that sort of thing. So that was, I remember my first scan in that. I was always curious. I think that's the thing. I've always been curious. And I thought, I'll give this a try. So I had a session, and it had come up with a virus, a Hong Kong virus in my system. And I'd lived in Hong Kong when I was a child, and I had apparent measles during then, and it was pretty extreme. And that kind of got me at that point. I was like, how could it pick up that I had a virus in my system from Hong Kong? And so that opened up, and then that was sort of my journey. And then I always wanted that machine, but it was always like the big machines, 30,000 US. And then suddenly the Healy came into play. So then I got myself a Healy, And then the AO scanner was the next piece for me, which is, yeah, just an amazing piece of technology. Like, I don't really touch my Healy anymore. Like, I only use it when it calls me, if that makes sense. And I find that there's different frequencies for different people. And the AO scan and the Healy, for example, my partner really resonates with the Healy. Like, when I do a session on him when he really needs something, he gets profound experiences from the Healy. So, but for me, the AO scan, just what it provides, what they provide, SoulX, and everything that comes with it, and all the information. Like, I'm on the calls that they send out on YouTube. I've gone through all the training. Like, it's a lot of data, and it's a lot of information, but it's all there. And the communities that are created, like, obviously your community, I'm connected to all the others. Like, I'm like, I want to be a part of all of them. I want to see what all of them are sharing. Then you start following Becky and all these people. There's just such a richness of information and creativity. I'd say that, like, there's a lot of creativity with this device and what people are doing with it.
Oh,
So,
I totally agree. Yeah. And it is an amazing community. The things that we can learn just through the official AO Scan group is so good. And then, of course, yeah, the trainings and all of the ongoing support that SoulX give us, as well as the upgrades to the technology itself, are phenomenal. You know, it's almost hard to believe that in the 3 years that we've had ours, we've never been charged any increases for our subscription. In fact, those of us who were there at the beginning have been promised no increase to our subscription because we were part of the OG group. And the improvements have been nothing short than mind-blowing. So I want to definitely talk to you about some of those extra trainings that you've done. But before we go there, I'd really love to know more about what you've been seeing in the field. And, you know, there are obviously people coming to you for many, many different reasons. And what I notice for myself is that there are waves of different types of, whether it's symptomology or emotional type things. And people come, it's almost like these soul groups come, they are attracted to what we're offering. They somehow find out about us. And then we work through a specific kind of thing that has shown up for a lot of people at the same time. That's at least my experience. It sounds like maybe you've also had similar kinds of experiences with the people coming to you.
Well, it might be also one that recently came up for me, and it might have come up for you, but then it made me go and try and explore why this was coming up, and then I got told, was nicotine detox. I'm like, why? And they're like, I don't smoke. And I'm like, oh God. And then another one would come up, nicotine detox. And I'm like, well, what's going on here? And I researched it a bit, and there's two avenues to that. And one's like, apparently potatoes, nightshades, if you overeaten those, can bring up too much. And then because we have nicotine receptors in our body, like cannabinoids, and so the one view is like too many nightshades, but the other view is the V's, like out there, were creating the nicotine voids in the body to requiring to kind of detox, because they're trying to deal with the load of what's coming into the system after number 4, number 5, you know, injection or whatever's going on there. So I just saw those trends. And then a client came in and told me that, yeah, they've noticed that as well. But it was all because it's in the field. People who hadn't had that experience over the last couple of years were also getting it. And I was like, well, it's in the field, so it's like a collective thing. And we're all kind of, it's like a trigger, because when you're in a field, you can surrogate, you can sense people's, and you're co-regulating. So what are you co-regulating? If you're with someone and their heart's not right, or their lungs aren't right, or their kidneys not right, energetically, your body steps in. If you're close, it's an automatic. If someone says to you, like in a ceremony, will you be my support? what does that actually mean? Yes. And then my body goes, okay, this part of the body, this part of the body, like all this stuff's happening between us because we only see 5%. So when we talk about the field, it's like collectively these things are coming up, even though I'm not taken a vaccine or whatever, it's still coming up because everyone's got it. So I
Yes.
don't know if that answers that question around the field and seeing similarities of things. And then, I mean, it's so much data that I don't know everything, but it gives me opportunities to explore and learn new things for myself. And so I'm trying to get really into the data processing of all of it. Are you okay if I talk a little bit about that?
I would love for you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously when I scan people, I always scan all of them first, like the inner, the comprehensive, the vitals. I explain to them that I can't do the easy scan yet because all of these things have to happen. Your body needs to adjust. And today I had a woman, it was her first time, and after all her scans, she stood up and she goes, oh, my leg's already adjusted. Like usually it takes me a while to stand. It was like this instant, shift in her body that she sensed, which I love the AO for that. But yeah, I collect all the data, and it's been really hardcore because all the comprehensive data, like the spreadsheets and stuff, when you do an easy scan, it basically doesn't repeat the same standard comprehensive because it takes a tailored version of it. So each time you can say the vitals are always the same. The inner voice is always, the data points for those are all the same, but the comprehensive is the one that's a bit more of a struggle. So my partner and I'll share it with the community once it happens, but we're looking at building I've been using ChatGPT and AI and things like that. And I know people are really scared of that stuff, but I come from a technical background. So I start to get the data and I start asking ChatGPT stuff like, here's a collection of things that have come together. ChatGPT, what's the correlations here? And then they'll say, because it's like, oh, this vein connects to this part.
Wow.
And then it's like, it's giving me all this information, and it's not factual, like I can't take it like that, but it gives me an idea of creativity of, all right, these things have come up. What could be healthy solutions? And then because it'll give me the medical, this is, say doctor data, but I found ways to ask ChatGPT to go omega-3, vitamin D, whatever. And then I go back and look at the vitals, and I'm like, the vitals have suggested that. But now I really know why, because it's given it to me down here in the comprehensives. Like I get more of a, to explore all the data is a lot of time, and I can do that and I start ticking and whatever. But if I can take it into ChatGPT or these other apps and then throw it in there and get the analysis of it, it's like it starts to open up my world, and then my creativity goes, and then I'll walk away from it and they'll get pop like downloads, and I'm like, okay. And then it kind of works in with the group. So just trying to work on some outputting data for that, like backhand stuff to go, you can put stuff in, here's all the data, and then it would pop out and then give suggestions and finding patterns, or what could be doing, what could be surrogating or supporting, because this part is in the heart, the iota, for example, requires this part of the trunk to do this first. And then knowing where the problem really is. Yeah. So I know it's really technical, like I could go really deep into it because that's my background. But I enjoy the journey of getting, like, it's just a data overload for me, but I get pleasure out of learning from it and seeing the patterns. Yeah.
Well, yours is an example that where you want to take knowing about biology and about all the correlations between the systems and how they're talking to each other and what's occurring. You're kind of like taking it to that nth degree. But this is one of the things that, when I first got mine, and most of us who do get one, it's like, if you want to, you can really take yourself through a biology course, but you don't have to.
No.
You can just press 2 buttons on a screen and
Yeah.
scan and optimize and know that it's done, and not have any of that stuff in your mental field.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of the things about it that I really love. You can let it be integrated into your life in a way that suits you. But if you're one of those people, you know, who has a real leaning towards having those deeper understandings, the places it can take you, especially with what you've just shared with ChatGPT, that's wild, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's so wild.
It is wild.
And I'm completely fascinated by it. So thank you for sharing that. One of the terms that you talked about was surrogating.
I'd
I'd
love
like to
to.
go into that a bit more deeply.
Mm. I'll give an example. I'll use a AO scan story for this, so I can explain how surrogation works. We use it in kinesiology, so I'm a kinesiologist. And I guess all the data for me, just closing off on that, is that how I offer it is I do a full scan at the start, and then I offer 4 weeks of easy scans.
Mm.
And then I get all the data and I collate it, and then I take it into kinesiology, and then we ask the body what the priority is, and we work through it that way with all that data. So that's why I kind of do all of that, and that's where I go down that path. But getting back to surrogation, I had a couple come in, and they're in their 70s, and a couple of years ago, the husband had a triple bypass, and there's also, you know, you've got people's personalities. So when you emotionally charge in a relationship and you feel for someone, then you might take on some of their symptoms and things like that. And so when this couple came in, the wife was saying to me that she'd gone to the doctors and they told her to be careful of the heart specialist, that she had like an issue with aorta, and she wasn't sure and she didn't want to believe them. Like, she just took that information and she wanted to explore with the AO scan. And she brought her husband in at the same time for other things. So I scanned them both, and it was coming up that they were both having issues with the aorta. It was coming constantly, like heart cut top, heart trunk, like all of that stuff was coming up and comprehensive. And what the thing was hers was bad, I guess, or inflamed, nines. But over 4 weeks, I watched it shift all the way down to 1 and then turn into like a green blue. So she'd shifted, but his had stayed. And so what I worked out through this was I got this download, and then through kinesiology, I tested. And this is wild, right? So not a medical practitioner, blah, 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 just stating that for the internets. But when he had a triple bypass, she was in a state of, I'm going to lose my husband. I'm really sad. I've got to look after him, putting all her energy, all her body energy, everything unknowingly to support this man. He then goes through this surgery, recovers. And now she's taken on surrogation of some of this pain. She's taken on some of that in the field. And a couple of years later, now she's got heart issues. And then we clear it. But then he's gotten the heart issues from her because she's walking around the house saying, oh, I could have a problem with my heart, I could have a problem with my heart. And him loving his wife and body unconsciously is like in for surrogation, in for support. So they're almost playing this like ping pong with each other of this heart issue that originally could have come from heartbreak. It could have been from ancestral, and it's not being healed or dealt with. So then it comes into its physical element, and then they just kind of play back and forth. So once I kind of put that into perspective and then increase their heart energies and put them back together, the next step, I guess, is to try and work out when they come back, which they probably will, they always come and see me, but to work through where this lineage or where this trauma came from around the heart in a more metaphysical way. Because his heart's fine now, it's different parts that are going, but it was because of her heart issue. And so that surrogation can happen with, you know, if someone tells you a story and you start to feel things and you start to lean in, and then you start to care and you overcare, you kind of like, where's my body? It's moving forward. I'm taking this in. And then you take that story and tell 10 people and dramatize it and really give it an energy, really give it an entity. you then are starting to attach to those things, and suddenly you got a sore back or something's going on because you've picked up in the field their issue. And we do it all the time with loved ones, but it's about, like, when we're listening to people as practitioners or whatever, where is our body in that moment? And then you can do techniques where you just tap in here and saying, I'm being my own being. Now is not then is not now, and calling back your energy and just doing those sorts of processes that we do as healers to protect ourselves, to clear any attachments, all that sort of stuff. But surrogation's a real thing. And I had it in that experience of the AO, like, presented to me in that way. And I was like, wow, this is cool.
I love hearing this. It's really exciting. I do similar work to you, and I've not actually spoken to too many other people who are working with the AO in a very similar way. So hearing about how you're integrating the technology with the energetic work and with the kinesiology, as well as all of the energetic hygiene practices. It's really inspiring to know that you're doing this, and that the AO has found its way to you, and it's supporting your clients. We've kind of touched on it, but I really would love to know, before you had the AO, and then after you got it, what changed in the ways that you sort of were able to support your clients? And did you find that the intuitive things that you would get were confirmed by the AO? Or were there additional bits of information that you couldn't get before that it could bring you that have really switched up the game for you and your clients?
I think I feel that an example of this, right, is it really backs me up. So I find before I do the inner voice, we're having conversations. It's like spirit, soul teams, spirit teams, whatever, are in the room. And for whatever reason, we've honed into a conversation around condition or unconditional loving, or it could be fear or scared to change, like all the ones that come under the voice, like some topic comes up around that. And so today, twice, I did 2 scans, and both times before, and they were first timers both time. And before we did the inner voice scan first, the first one came up around grieving and sadness for the change in the world. And the other one, and how they kind of just respond in a certain way to shut it down. Like, oh yeah, like they live near a hospital and they're hearing more ambulances, like sirens more and more. And instead of expressing the emotion of sadness about that, they just say something to shut it down. And for that person, the most suppressed emotion was sadness versus inner peace after that conversation. And it almost just solidifies our thing, like, oh, look at that. Isn't that interesting? And then I'll correlate it to the conversation we just had. I get a lot of that with people. And yeah, and then I get trends. So it was like both clients today, their suppression was inner peace, sadness, and totally, like, the stories resonated of not expressing sadness.
Yeah.
One really wanted inner peace in her life, just really traumatizing. The other one wasn't expressing sadness. And they both weren't expressing their sadness. They were just kind of keeping it at a bubble. And yeah, so I guess these sorts of stories where I find in kinesiology, we get taught that we have to really hold space. And because I'm like you, Liz, I'm Filipino, and in my bloodline, our bloodlines, they've been suppressed through colonization and stuff like that. But the women were shamans before the Spaniards came along, and now the bloodlines are becoming alive again. So I'd have all things like I started to have things where organs would talk to me, and then I would feel portals into them, like, and then I'd get a flash into them being a child, And then I'd have to do like a soul retrieval at that point in my first learning of Reiki, because that was like all that psychic medical stuff that they used to do, like psychic surgeries and talking to the dead and all that type of stuff. But when I find kinesiology, when I do it, say I'm looking at emotion and it's anger, and I'm hearing in my head, anger, anger, anger. But I have to go, okay, which one? This one, this one. Oh, that one. Yep. This one. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Anger. But it's like, it's always there. But with the AO, I have that, all that stuff going on, and the machine just shows me. Like, I'm already getting downloads and stuff. And sometimes I can't say things because I have to hold space. And it might be they're drinking too much alcohol, and I can see that, but I don't have to say it because the machine says it.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then it's a better conversation to have, because they're like, they'll start justifying or whatever, and I'll just be like, look, it's up to you. Like, these are just messages from your body. So, you're in control. You have the choice. But this is just messages. And if you keep waking up at 3 a.m, it says your liver has this issue and there's like hops here and whatever. Well, we'll keep scanning and see what happens. Like, it's just almost like a little seed, an invitation. I don't have to be confronting. I've got the data to go, here you go. So that's the things that it kind of helps me with. It kind of strengthens my messaging and all my intuitional sort of, crazy Filipino shaman stuff, and I'm getting talked to and stuff, and I'm trying to be like, and yeah, and I get people who really want the technical. I think that's what I get with the AO scanner. I get people who want a lot of data, and it's also like the messaging of that, like, don't get attached to it, because some of them go crazy, and it's like, I say things to them like, you know what, go home, go in the bath, read it all if you want, right? But I then want you to let it go. And in 2-3 days, if you're getting little messages about a particular thing, and then it actually ties you to a memory of an accident, that's the stuff I want you to kind of go, that's how I talk to them about all that data. And then they come back the next week and they're like, I can't believe it picked up this, and I had this pain for one day up here, and I had whiplash 22 years ago. And then it was like, I said, yeah, it was like the pain had to come to the surface to complete. And then it's gone again. They're like, I wasn't angry this week, all those things.
That's so amazing. So let's have a chat about some of the things that you've witnessed in terms of the healings that people's bodies have been able to experience because they've had that level of support from you and from the AO. I'm sure you've seen some pretty wild stuff.
Yeah.
I know you're a big fan of the technology. So, would you share a couple of stories? And before, just to preface it, obviously we've just had a conversation about how when you talk about someone's stuff, you don't want to be surrogating. So what's your approach actually now when it comes to sharing about
stories and stuff,
story without surrogating? How do you manage that?
I guess I do a lot of self-practice. So I've kind of I do a lot of grounding work, a lot of clearing. I've been guided to do things like I ended up at a shaking retreat. And I was like, why am I here? There's like stage 4 cancer and heroin addicts, and I'm here. Like, I don't understand this. And this was before I became a shaman. And I've been trained in entity removal and all that sort of stuff. So for me, I have particular practices about it, and then it just keeps me clean. So I can talk about stuff, but then I can detach. Sometimes if I've had a full day of clients and I wake up at 2 a.m. and because they've caught it into me and I'm thinking about them, I'm like, but I know how to like detach, clear, calm the nervous system and put myself back to sleep and then clear my field up. But that's all because of lots of training and sort of discipline and awareness. So I have a lot of awareness in my body. I have a lot of like, where's my body right now? And so if I feel like I'm in kinesiology, I'm leaning really forward on the table, I'm too involved. And so I'll pull. So it's a subtleness. So it's almost like the field, like I'm dealing with it there rather than fully taking it in. And it's 2 weeks later and I've realized I'm still attached. I'm kind of getting it a lot quicker. So yeah, I can talk about these stories and I'm not attached to them. And if I do, I find quick ways to, remove myself. But recent healing. So I had someone, I put them in the machine on the AO scanner 3 times. And so they say that's usually when it starts to hum. And this person had German lineage. So I kind of feel sometimes when they get called to these texts, it's like their bloodlines or something really want it. And he was just kind of obsessed with it. Anyway, I get this text message from his wife one night recently, and husband's in the hospital. He's been the ambulances have come, the helicopters, he's in intensive care. He fell off the roof of their house, like in the bush, and cracked it full crack open. And he's in hospital and he's asked for you. Like, he can talk, can you give him a call? I'm like, what? Like, so I try to like collect myself before I have this chat, because he doesn't want to have an operation. He's fully into Joe Dispenza and imagining, and seeing himself well. So he calls me, I call him, and I'm like, hey man, like what's doing? And I'd had a session with him recently about pushing himself too hard. And he goes, I've pushed myself too hard. And I go, looks like you got a slap. You fell over. And he's like, yeah. And he goes, noted. And I go, okay, so what are they telling you? And he goes, oh, doctor's coming in and saying it's really bad. You're going to have an operation. You're going to be paralyzed if you don't get it done. And I'm like, oh, so what is the actual issue? And he's like, oh, they've told me my C2's fractured and my other C's. Which other C's? Oh, they can't tell me. So the doctor's telling you this. And he goes, yeah, and the specialist hasn't come yet. And I'm like, right. So this doctor's decided just to come in and say, have an operation straight away, but you don't feel right about it and you're waiting for the specialist, and they're kind of bullying you into this. And he's like, yeah. He goes, but I'm in my space, I'm pushing them back. And I'm like, all right, so you want an AO scan? He's like, yeah. I go, well, send me a recording. So I get his voice and I get the recording. I do the easy scan. And I also then overnight sent him a whole stack of frequencies for inner peace. And I gave him we're on the phone. I said, so can you see yourself getting better? He goes, yep, I'm well already. Like, it's already happening. My body's healing really quickly. I'm at home. And he goes, I'm walking out of here with a brace. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm with you. I did like some shaman work. I sent him some spirit animals, increased his protection, grounded him. And then I used the frequencies. I can't remember. I've got them somewhere, but I had a whole stack around bone healing. It was all about energetic protection, because in the hospitals, they're really hardcore. So I put all that sort of stuff in to assist him. And when I did the easy scan, I found it really fascinating, because I didn't have the bone set on him. We just sent me the voice, and then I did it separately. But as you know, the comprehensive is tailored. And I was like, oh, this will be interesting. And I thought, and it was like bang on. It did all the vertebrates, like it brought all the skeleton parts. And this was what it was like, because all his vertebrates, obviously skeleton, his spine was affected by the impact. So the sternum and the front and back sternum had been fractured. The C2, all of this like information, the frequencies were out. Anyway, he puts it on, I send it to him, and then he sends me a message and he goes, I've walked out with a brace. Thank you so much. You've helped me so much. And then I've sent him frequencies since, and every time I send them, even the homeopathics have come up, and all it is just him sending me a voice recording, and I just put it to the machine, and I'm like, this is wild. Like, this is wild. And he's just like, I love this machine. Like, it's amazing. So that's one of my recent miracles. I have my teacher, my kinesiologist teacher, we're in class, and she was complaining to me about this eczema or something she picked up, and we talked about it metaphysically and everything. And I said, why don't you lay down? I'll do an AO scan on you. And she'd had like 2 or 3 already in the system. So I did this, and then I just let her lay there and sleep and listen to the sounds. Like, I played them 3 times. So she had like 30 minutes of listening to the sounds. I gave her the water frequency. 3 days later, the eczema's cleared. I need to talk to you. And I'm just like, this is like, it's happening like all the time. So yeah, I mean, I could keep, there's things like, I went and saw my father-in-law and I did a whole stack of stuff at his house. And when we left, and he wasn't well, he hasn't been well, but I did some shaman. I did all this like unseen work because he's not really into that. So I was like battling his entities and doing all the stuff, using energetic shield and clearing in the house while I was there. And when we left, I did a scan on the house. And because we left, we got to, his mother had told us that he was really depressed because we were gone, like our energy had left the house. And I did a scan on the house and said depression. I was like, so then I was scanning that. And then 2 days later, he hadn't been physical like for about 2 years. And suddenly I've done all this work on him, plus the AO scan on the house. He's now walking 5 kilometers a day. But, you know, I can't say it's the AO scan. I can't, because that's not their belief system, you know, like I get permission by saying, do you mind if I do a bit of my woo woo? And then all this kind of stuff kind of occurs. But yeah, I've got lots, like it's great. It's so
that is so great.
rewarding. Yeah.
It's incredibly rewarding. So let's talk a little bit about spaces and how you've been using the AO to send frequencies and scan spaces. So can you go a bit more deeply into how you scanned the house and got depression?
So I used I think I went into just the Cephis and the house was under me. And because I'd been there for a while, and and that's what I want to ask you, Liz, like if it's okay if I do ask some questions, because
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So I had this thought the other day, like I just believe that this is happening, but because energetically the house has an energy, like it has a spirit and all that sort of stuff. But if you're sending a frequency just to a particular house, it was like his dad was depressed, the house was depressed. So if I'm then shifting the energy on the house, then that's reflecting a new frequency for him to invite to him to have a shift as well, because that place is his sanctuary and it's holding him. And so I think that's correct. If there's anyone in the house, not only the house gets it, well, the house vibrates differently, therefore they get, it's that feeling, right? When you go to a space and you're like, oh, it feels really nice in here. It is affecting you.
Yeah, everything's connected, you know, everything. It doesn't matter if it's a living biological being or what we would maybe think of as an inorganic structure. Everything's still connected at a quantum level, and that's where we're doing the adjustments.
Yeah,
as I'm seeing it. And so, yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it, when you can use the scan button in Cephi, have an object or a space as the target, and then actually scan that target. It's amazing.
Yeah, because it's also like, say if you don't have full consent, but you kind of maybe can connect into the spirit of the house and say, can I do this? And then it's up to them whether or not they want to take on that field and that frequency. And obviously it did affect him. I'm more about, in the Cephi space, what I really enjoy is, because it's all the data and everything's there, I'm really into press scan and see what comes up.
Me too.
I've been doing that a lot more. Every time I do a full scan for people, I always give them a Cephi dot, and I do it at the end because all that data's there. So I'll put the Cephi dot in and get that, and then I might add a quantum reach and see what that gives them, and a quantum affirmation, and I think that's enough for them.
Yes.
And then when they come in a week later to do the easy scan, I give them a new one, and I use the homeopathics. I put all the homeopathics into that are delivered to them, or sometimes in tune, I just go, no, I only need 2 for this. And then I always do the Cephi dot. So they always get like a Cephi dot and then some of the homeopathics to kind of support what's going on in their body.
Yeah. And so with the homeopathics, how are you giving it to them? Are you making a tincture? Are you printing up sugar pills? Or are you actually imprinting those homeopathics into the Cephi dot?
So I'll either do it in their dot, I'll do it in, so some people are sensitive to the dots. And so I got someone's ring, someone that had an accident at work, and I got their ring, and because they were sensitive to the dots, and I just used that, and I put a whole stack of, I went to the homeopathic section and the symptoms, and had arnica and all those sorts of things, and I put it on, and they weren't sure if they had to go to the hospital, but by the end of the day they were fine. And that often works for them. Like, they've had a migraine, I'll put something into their ring and it works that way. So I use jewelry a lot because it's on them and they wear it, so it's kind of like they can't get away. Well, you know, they won't sort of forget it. And as a Cepi dot, obviously, and I have done sugar pills, but and I'm thinking of doing tinctures, but making my own tinctures, because I had this this is a really good tip, I kind of can recommend it. With homeopathics, right, like with tinctures, you're not supposed to touch them with your tongue. There's this whole process. So how I tell my clients to do it is at nighttime, an hour before bed, wait 10 minutes with nothing in your mouth, then get your water, put it on the screen and put your frequencies in it, then drink your water, then wait 10 minutes, and then you can do whatever you want. Because some of those homeopathics are going to work in your dream space, because they have multiple dimensional workings. So it might be that you're taking something for a backache, but that's also got a personality connection to that homeopathic. So when they're sleeping, they're going to have weird dreams because the body's also clearing stuff out through that process as well. But I'm thinking of making bottles. I've got these bottles there. Instead of tinctures, they're spray bottles. So you don't actually touch the tincture, like it's just straight in the mouth and it lasts and it's in glass and blah, blah, blah. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. I've been experimenting with tinctures as well, and I've found that the scan button and the by symptoms search tool in the quantum homeopathics has been absolutely a game changer, because I can custom make a sleep remedy for a particular person that's going to be different in the set of frequencies that we're using to someone else and their sleep tincture. So being able to customize them with that much specificity, especially with quantum reach, quantum affirmations, and the chakras, and actually scanning for them for which things are going to be supportive for their sleep time in those menus. It's just, it's been so amazing.
I think that you, Liz, like, maybe you would agree with this, as practitioners of this device, you know, we pay a monthly fee or whatever happens with, if you've got other people that you have on board, but the fee itself is like you cut down on your own therapy by walking your talk as well. So if I'm going to get my clients to do this, like, I have to do it myself and I have to experience it, so that it's like, I know it's like myself in the field with this machine, and having the shifts in my body as it sort of increases or shifts or whatever kind of goes on in that space. And the more I play with it and the more experience I have with it, then I can onset that to, or, you know, offer that to my clients, rather than just, here's a machine, I never touch it, never do it. You know, the practitioners that don't, sorry out there, I don't want to offend anyone, but who don't actually do the work, because, you know, you have to do the work to walk your talk. And we're coming into a field where lots of stuff's changing, like old worlds are changing, where you know, I like to use a term like, you can have a really beautiful front shop, and the front shop looks great, but there's sausages out the back that are off, and that's not hot, you know. Like, it's like we're increasing our frequency. People can start to see if you are authentic or true, like it's starting to become more obvious in the healing community, you know. So 100%. All I can say is, AO scan yourselves.
I
Yeah.
totally
I
agree.
know you do. I know you love it.
I am obsessed with it. I just love it so much. And there's always opportunities for me to use it because of what shows up for me every day. You know,
Sorry, what was that? I missed it.
oh, there's so many opportunities throughout my day for me to bring it into what I'm doing because of, what I'm intending, what I'm creating, and or how I'm showing up in my own life or for my clients or for my friends or my family, my business. There's just always things that the AO can do to enhance whatever it is that I'm actually doing. Um, there are days, of course, when I'm like, oh God, I'm just like not going to do it so much. But
Mm,
yeah, whenever I'm out, I'll always try and erase and imprint my drinks when I'm at a cafe or somewhere in a public space because I don't necessarily want to take in. Ultimately, it is the data that's imprinted itself on, the coffee that I'm drinking or the cup that it's in or whatever it is. Um,
mm,
and I also really just love the way that the flavors change, or how the energy that I'm attracting in my life is more uplifting
mm,
and more magnetic to the good things
mm,
that we can all, you know, benefit from. And so, yeah, it's incredible. And I just absolutely love the insight that it gives me, and especially love how it's changed the way that I perceive the world and allowed the bandwidth that I'm accessing in terms of my own higher intelligence source connections.
mm,
It's dramatically widened that bandwidth and helped me so much to stay coherent in my frequencies
mm,
and in my consciousness as we've been, you know, navigating through so many different shifts and waves of photonic light that are, activating us. And I've got an app on my phone from Space Weather, and it's just been going off throughout the day
mm,
constantly. There's like M-class flares happening almost every hour. This has never
mhm,
happened.
mhm,
Well, at least
mm,
we're
mm,
coming up to solar maximum, so this is to be expected. But it also feels like
mm,
it's even more than normal. And,
mm,
that really affects our nervous systems. It affects our brains. It affects our sleep patterns and the physical functions. So being able to have the AO has been just hugely supportive for me in that on that level as well. So I must ask you about how it's been for you in terms of what you've noticed in how you've
mm.
been observing your own consciousness shifting over these last 3 years, and how it's, you know what do you do through your day to help you? You talked about the energetic auras and doing the clearings and the shielding. Obviously that's something that I do a lot as well, but what are the other things that you turn to help you with your own consciousness and keeping it stable in these times?
Yeah, I think I'll talk about my very first experience with it where I just kind of, whoa, like I had Jess do a scan on me like this remotely. And so I'm not even got headphones. I'm just hearing it out in the loud space and I'm woo, 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 woo. And I'm like, okay. And she's doing all the things. And I had to go to a meeting after that. And I got out and I drove to this meeting and I had to walk 500 meters and my whole body was like, woo, 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 woo. Like I felt really discombobulated and my body had shifted massively. Like I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much that experience had shifted things in my body, like, lengthening my legs and doing all sorts of weird things. Um, and then I had a bit of a detox and whatever. But then after that, I was like, well, that was probably one of the most profound physical experiences after it's a bioresonance. It's not really biofeedback. I try to explain to people the difference. So from that point, I was like, yeah, I want it. Like, let's go, Jess. Um, and I used it for 2 years effectively on myself and just family and friends before I became a clinician with it, because for me, I just need to know something and believe in something. And COVID, and I wasn't really start. I was kind of working underground, just doing ceremonial work or other things, and just testing it on people and seeing, getting kind of like, I guess, feedback from loved ones first, just to see, and sending them frequencies. But for me personally, I use it intuitively. But for example, I go to the gym every second day. So I'm at the gym, and then to cool down, I go to the wall, I put my legs up, and I play my sounds for 10 minutes. And I just allow that, and I get up and I can feel my body totally shifted just from listening to those sounds. So that's my prep for the day. And I do my waters in the evening. So I'm doing like the easy scan predominantly. I put frequencies, like different playlists. I do a lot of just scans now, but I used to have playlists. Sometimes what I'll do is, after an easy scan, the frequencies that have come up for me, I'll make a playlist of that and play it overnight while I'm sleeping, just to get that, well, this is where I'm at the moment in the field. So I'm going to play this overnight. I'm going to have it in the water. The water does taste different. I've had clients tell me that they can taste the frequencies in the water at night when they do that. They're like, that's wild. And so, yeah, it's more of it's a daily tool. Like, I've got it with me all the time. Predominantly, it's listening to my inner voice. If I'm going to go to a place, I might clear it up. Like, before I go see a practitioner, I'll do all my energetic stuff, but I'm getting a healing in that space. So I'll do energetics, shield, all that sort of stuff. I've been doing an abundance list on myself, and it's crazy because I'm a massive manifester, and things are just happening. Like, I visualize myself in a particular outfit as a person. 2 days later, I've got it. Like, it's shown to me on Facebook or whatever, and I only had that in my visual space. I imagine myself, a future self, doing a bit of quantum leaping with Jason Parks, which, you know, yeah. And I use, like, I'm having all these lists running while I'm doing all this sort of quantum leaping, visualizing, frequency increasing. So it really supports me. Because what happens is, I feel for me, as I'm shifting in my consciousness, I've got to step up to the plate. And sometimes there's struggles from old world to deal with things. And I can either fall back to a frequency and go, I can't change this relationship or whatever. I've got a future me, but I've just taken myself back 6 months because I can't go through this lesson. What I find with the frequencies, they give me that space or gentleness. I'm finding that I'm being able to gently move through some of the painful shifts that I want to go to a future self. And the other thing I want to talk just briefly just about stuff in the field and what we learn in kinesiology and stuff is that we have all these bodies, and a virus starts here, a parasite starts here, a bacteria starts here. And so when it comes up on the scan, sometimes they go, oh, virus, like detox, like what's that about? It's like, it's picked it up probably in one of the bodies. And because your frequency's at a certain level, it's sort of prepping you for that experience before it happens. And the other thing is, like, then I kind of get into more kinesiology stuff, is like, if you've got a parasite, or if you've got a gut bug that's giving you the shits or something, it's like, who's giving you the shits? So if your frequency's down and you have people that aren't incongruent with you, or like on the same, like challenging you, or not same values or whatever, and you're having this like experience, your field gets dropped. And so that opens up the door, and they might have a gut bug, and you are at a particular frequency, and because of this experience, you drop your energy, and a door opens and you get their gut bug because you're in that sort of co-frequency. So what the AO scan does is gives you that buffer, gives you pre-warning, predicts as well. And you can start to ask yourself, like, oh, why am I getting bacteria or parasite cleansing? Like, you know, because I feel okay or whatever. But it's like, sometimes it can be like a pre-warning. Yeah.
You are so fascinating to listen to. I have absolutely adored this talk, and I'm sure that Alex and Kerry have also really enjoyed it. Um, it's time for us to come to a close, but I'd love for you to share with everybody how they can get in touch with you if they'd like to come and see you for a session or learn more about the AO.
Um, Thank you, Liz. Yeah, I'm at my company's called Regulate Therapies, and so it's regulatetherapies.com, and I do a whole stack of things remotely and also in person. But also I work at, which I didn't mention, at an EE systems place, which is an energy enhancement system, which has been a new tech that's out there. And just how that came into my life. I just have this field of getting tech into my life, and I rocked up to this place, and the first day they're like, do you want a job? And I kind of sat with it. Third time in, do you want a job? And I'm like, okay. And my whole experience in the EE systems has been wild as well. So yeah, I work at a place called Essential Healing in Ringwood, and they've got 8 screens there plus a cube, and they do breath work and a whole range of other things there. And I'll be running ceremonies there in that field, in that energy space, that scale away technology, which is another story for another time. But it's really and anyone can talk to me or ask me questions about that. I'm happy, because I know that there's 2 tracks of fields. Some people are a little bit scared of it, and because it's AI, it's technology, all this sort of stuff. But yeah, we've seen some interesting things happen in that space that we can't say it's medical. It's like, oh, someone's coming in with all these broken ribs. They've come in for 4 sessions and they have no pain. We don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
Oh, a non-verbal autistic child's come into the space, and half at the end of the session, they're talking for the first time. We don't know why that's happening. So yeah, it's really interesting to be working and seeing sort of these experiences come out of there, and also have the AO scan in that space. That's where I do A scanning, and I have a light, and I do kinesiology there. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But thanks, Liz. I love it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so, so much. And I hope that you'll come back and share with us some more at some point. Yeah,
I'd love that.
that would be great. There's just so many things that we couldn't touch on tonight, but I would love to in another conversation. So, Shell, it's just been so good. Thank you, thank
Oh,
you, thank you. And many blessings to you. And yeah, good luck with every single thing that you're involved with. Lots of sacred endeavors. And I just love that resonance that we both have to our Filipino lineages as well.
yay, salamat.
Salamat.
Yeah,
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night. And yeah, we'll see you again soon.
thank you. Bye.